Oh, it's nice to know when you make obscure references to television shows when someone smiles or laughs. You're like, yeah,
Well, you get it.
You get it. You saw that. So you've heard our new theme song. What do you think?
I did. I liked
You like it?
I liked it a lot, yeah.
I
I
have.
hope our audience likes it.
I hope so too. I have now written 3 songs. I'm going to keep working at it, see if I can get any better.
Is that the proper term? Written or composed?
Composed. Whatever. I hope that maybe one day I can save up enough money. I've been thinking about this a lot over the last few years. I have the space to put a mesh drum kit in here. And I'm 54, and the last time I played, I was 25. And I don't know if I'm any good, but I enjoyed playing, and it was something that brought me joy. And a mesh drum kit is basically just like a drum kit made of drum pads, so you're not disturbing the neighbors.
Yeah, and you have your headphones on.
Yeah.
You can figure it all out, yeah.
But I need to save up because you can get them for $400 or $500, but the one I want is almost $3,000.
Oh, of course. Like a nice Casio.
Yeah. So there is the room in this room that a little bit of rearranging and could easily fit in here.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe one day I'll get to that stage. Right now I'm just doing stuff on the computer, trying to compose some music. And I'll just keep plugging away at it. So after taking a break, I figured we were close to, I almost said Thanksgiving, Halloween.
We are.
Which is 2 weeks away. So I thought, I'll write an episode on ghosts and then write another episode. And as you can see by the script in front of us, the next 2 episodes are going to be about the ghosts in this area because it's pretty long and it's a lot more involved than what I thought. And like I just told you before that you had next week's script in front of you. Guess what I just did?
Oh, you have next week's.
I put next week's in front of me. Oh, I'm a dummy. That's okay. We're all set and ready to go. And I decided that, because Halloween's around the corner, and I know a lot of people get into Halloween. I don't. I never really have.
Oh, no? I love Halloween.
Yes.
Halloween's my season.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Love it. Love the pumpkin carving, and I go to Bath and Body Works and get the autumn scented candles and the cinnamon candles and all that. And yeah.
Ooh.
I just have a good time.
The only thing I like is there's a company called, Tuscany Candle, and they have a crisp apple candle.
Oh, yeah.
But they have it available year round. The first time I saw it was last fall, and oh my God, it was awesome having your house smell like apples.
Well, and we got a Spirit Halloween in our small little town this year, which is a big deal for our small little town. I'm sure anyone who's watching who has a Spirit Halloween, they're like, oh, whatever, big deal. It's like a Walmart during Halloween. It's just whatever. But I think it's pretty neat. The amount of stuff they have in there is pretty cool. I don't know if you went in there.
I have not been in one yet, so maybe I should.
It's really neat. It's just the variety is what you're kind of blown away with.
It's
all the things you can do.
And it's at the mall, isn't it?
Yep.
Oh, sorry. Uptown Scottsbluff.
Is that what we're calling it now?
That's what it's been renamed to, and I looked at the website for the company that owns the mall, and they have a similar thing in 4 other towns, and I can't remember the other towns, but it's Uptown town name.
Weird, because I thought Co-op was Uptown. Or is that just the marketplace? I don't remember.
I don't know.
You guys don't need to keep renaming things for our sakes.
Yeah.
I mean, the buildings don't change. We know where they are.
Yeah. Just keep it the same. When you demolish the Kmart building and put something else up, just call it Kmart again.
Yeah.
I don't care what goes in there. It's
just
Kmart.
Put it Kmart, yep.
And that happens in my hometown when my mom would say to me, oh, I went shopping at such and such a place. I'll be like, oh, where's that? And she, oh, that's where the old Acme used to be. Yeah. Oh, okay, I know where that is. I don't know where the new stuff is anymore, Mom. You have to go back 40 years. But I get that from older folks here. They'll be like, oh, yeah, that place is over by where the potato factory was. I'm like, only lived here 17 years. Potato factory's been gone for 30. Don't know where it is.
Yeah, I still get that. A lot of people talk about the potato factory. It's like, guys, I am not that old.
Yeah. I still don't know where it was, but I just kind of nod because it's not that I don't care where the location is, but that's not the important part of the story that the person is trying to tell.
Yeah, so. The fact that we had a potato chip company here once upon a time.
Yeah, and I actually did a story last year on a lady that works up just north of Alliance. And if she listens to this podcast, she would kill me because I can't remember everything she does. But it's basically taking care of potatoes, inspecting them for fungus, that kind of stuff.
Oh, okay.
And I can't even
agricultural inspector.
Kind of, yeah. And they check everybody's fields, and it's a really neat job that she has. I can't say other than there are a lot of major producers who still buy our potatoes here in western Nebraska.
Yeah.
And if you go and do some digging, you can find out who those major producers are. But I promised her I would not say anything because it's a condition of the job as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But a
lot of people don't get that, we're the Cornhusker state. There isn't a lot of corn on this side of the state.
No.
Like percentage-wise, it's very, very low.
Yeah.
Even on the east side, it's not that high. Mm-mm. Kansas has more corn than we do.
Yeah. Iowa has way more corn than we do.
Yeah.
We definitely should be the bean state, but then...
I would have thought
but then you'd have all the fart jokes, But yeah, we're a major player in dry edible beans.
Or even sugar.
Yeah. Sugar as well.
We're huge on sugar.
Yeah. So, anyway, so I thought I'd share the ghost stories around the Panhandle. I don't particularly buy into it, and when we get to Fort Robinson, I'll tell you some things there that basically confirm to me that there's no such thing as ghosts. But I have friends that love getting scared, love checking that kind of stuff out. And I have to admit that when we get to Fort Rob, I spent the night there one time, and it's very easy to creep yourself out.
Oh, yeah. And I spent the night several times at Fort Robinson throughout my entire life, yeah.
I've never been in the places where the public can spend the night. So I've spent the night twice there in places where the public can't.
Oh, well, see, I didn't get to do that. I mean, I got to go into the cabins, the officers' quarters. Mm-hmm. I camped out many, many times. I would just camp out in the campsites.
So when
it's creepy. Yeah, it's eerily quiet out in Fort Robinson at night. It's just very, very quiet. Mm-hmm. Always has been, and I think that's what adds to the eeriness of it.
Yeah. So when we get to Fort Rob, you can tell your stories as well.
Yeah, I have a few.
But I decided to start with Fort Rob and the Midwest because they're the two longest, the two that I know the most about. And then when we get to next week's episode, it'll be all the other places around the Panhandle. I tried to keep them generally in order, so if you're looking on a map, it'll be easy for you to follow around where everything's at. And we are going to do Fort Robinson as probably a multiple-part podcast, and we'll do an episode on the Midwest as well. Mm-hmm. We just haven't gotten to them, and I can't slow time down to get to them before Halloween happens. So here's our Halloween stuff. So most people that go to Fort Rob, they think it has it all. So before it was a state historical park, it was a temporary encampment during the Indian Wars, then an official fort, then a military base. And since its inception in 1874, there have been strange tales and stories about the fort and things going on at the fort. And like I said, we'll get to the history of the fort later because it's so fascinating and interesting. Today, we're just going to talk about the things that don't want to leave Fort Robinson. So there are reports of hauntings all over the fort. And I'm just going to cover a few, and it's because those are the ones that I've actually had people tell me stories of. So if I found something online that said, oh, there's a ghost in such and such a place, I tried to find out for sure from a person who actually told me this.
Sure.
I used to write freelance for a publication called Nebraska Magazine. It no longer exists. It only existed online. And when I was writing this episode, the Internet Archive had just been attacked and was taken offline, and it's in read-only mode now, but you can find the articles on the Wayback Machine at the Internet Archive. I just didn't get the links to those stories, just because I didn't want to hammer their site. They're back in read-only mode, but they're trying to get fully 100% back. Sure. And I just didn't want to hammer it just so that I could cut and paste a web address. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's where most of my stuff for the fort and for the Midwest come from, because I've actually written stories on those. And I still had my notes, and I had my rough draft that I had turned in. So I built off of that. And some points I'll quote from it as well, because there's no point in rewriting my own sentences. That's just kind of silly. So most people who visit Fort Robinson have no idea about the storied history. They just think it was a former military base, and now it's a cool place to go hang out for fishing, hiking, and horseback riding, which it is. Mm-hmm. And some people go there and do that and never learn anything about the history of the fort. So those who come to get an education at the fort get that and even more. And everyone I've ever encountered up there, if you ask them about ghosts, they usually have a story, or someone has told them a story. So reports of the former occupants still residing at the fort come in the manner of hearing them. I only know of one visual ghost, and I've got it in my story, but it's all hearing, and then I have one smell as well.
Interesting. And I guess we should have asked this when we were up at Fort Rob, what the skeleton crew was in the wintertime. Like how many people man that place during the winter? Not a whole bunch, but you got to keep the horses and everything alive.
Yeah, there's a very, very skeleton crew, because you can.
It's technically open all year round, isn't it? Or is it only open till fall, but the campsite's open all year round?
The campsite's open year round, and then it's Labor Day is the last day it's open.
Yeah. Like the museum and the trail rides, the horseback rides. Yeah,
that's all closed. But if you bring your own horse, there's a huge parking lot out. It's not a parking lot, but it is a parking lot for your horse and your trailer and stuff. And you can take your own horse up there. Mm-hmm. I think there's just mainly just maintenance folks, and there's someone that mans the desk at Comanche Hall.
Yeah, and stable hands.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's very... I don't even know if their horses at the fort stay there in the winter. I don't know.
That's a good point. I guess I don't know either. I've helped button up the Custer State Park. Okay. And they take out all their horses when that happens. So it could be. And
I never thought to look. Next time I go up, I'll have to have a look. But when I go up there, I love going this time of year because it's closed. Yeah. And there's nobody on the trail. So if I hear something, I know it's a danger I need to pay attention to. Yes. Whereas if it was the middle of July, I'd be like, oh, it's some jerk on the trail. Mm-hmm. So I prefer hiking out by myself, not where there's a lot of people. Yeah. And I just would notify my friend Renee, who I interviewed for this story as well, and I would just let her know, hey, I'm up here, and I'm gonna go hike this trail, and then I would have to let her know when I got back and was in my car, just for safety reasons.
Because I'm sure most of this happened when people weren't around.
Yeah, yeah.
Convenient, by the way. Irene and I are not here to endorse the supernatural, just so you guys are aware.
No.
It's a little convenient that everyone spots ghosts in the wintertime when no one else is there.
Yeah. So I know the museum was open. I don't know if because last year I think they closed at the end of October, but I think the year before they were open through November. And in 2020, when I went up here to do this interview, and then it didn't get published for 2 years because nobody wanted to publish it, whatever. Mainly just because they only wanted to publish it in October, and then October comes and goes, and didn't you have a story? Yeah, I did have a story. So, but I went up there and stayed overnight in December. And I think they were closed then. It was early December, and I think they had closed like in November.
Place is creepy when it's all
shut down. Yeah. And and it's just, I don't think they have the money to keep it going year round.
Well, if it's like Custer State Park, there's just no point.
Yeah.
Like a small part of Custer State Park stays open all year round, just like Fort Robb. A small part stays open all year round, but there's no point in having everything
running.
It snows so much in that area that once a good snowfall comes, no one goes through that path.
Yeah.
For our audience, Fort Robinson is in a particular location that you can go around it. I'm using the highway system. You have to actually go out of your way to get to Fort Robb.
Yeah.
It's not on your way to anything. I mean, if you go through it, you'll go to Harrison, but you don't have to go that way to get to Harrison.
Right. Yeah. And I know that when they did try to extend the hours through to Thanksgiving at the museum, it just wasn't cost effective to do it.
No.
And
ghosts don't pay money.
Yeah, the ghosts go whenever they want.
Yeah, they're useless.
And maybe it would be nice. Maybe I'll suggest it to my friend Sandra.
Charge the ghosts.
Charge the ghosts.
You get them all together here. It's like, hey, guys, look here.
You all come here free all the time. You need to start paying. Maybe put a sign on the door and have somebody that's available to open the museum if someone did come by and want to see it.
I know they do that for schools because I went to that museum in July and February when I was a kid.
Yeah.
They'll open it up for schools, especially small schools.
And I know for the Cheyenne breakout in January, they open up the barracks building for that night because
they open it up for the Cheyenne breakout to do the run.
Yeah, because I've been there for it. Anyway, so we should probably get back to Fort Robb and actually start our episode. They might make some money if they charge the ghosts. So there are many reports of the veterinarian hospital. It's probably the one that I've heard the most often is that in Comanche Hall, which we'll get to. But dozens of people report hearing hoof clops. And of course, natural skeptic me, horses go up there. So yeah, why would you not hear horse clops? But they're talking in the hospital itself.
And so for our viewers, I've been into this hospital. This veterinarian's hospital, it is huge. It is creepy, but you can only go down through a hallway. You're not allowed into any of the rooms.
The operating rooms. You can see them, but you can't go in them.
So are they talking about the people that got into the operation rooms heard stuff, or people who are just in that hallway heard stuff?
Both.
Okay, because the hallway leads right out to the stable. So
and so that's my first thought, and they're like, "Oh no! There's more." So there's flickering lights everywhere, as well as and
the flickering lights just get me.
To me, flickering lights means bad electricity, and this place went up in 1874.
My husband's from Harrison.
Yes,
it's not far down the road, people, and that place loses powers for weeks on end every winter. It's just a thing.
Yeah,
it happens.
But they, those have been attributed to ghosts as well.
Of course.
And if you're someone who tends to believe in ghosts and you want to go out there for the experience, Fort Robinson has its own collection of pain, suffering, and joy of all the people who went through here. If you go through and you learn everything about the history of that place,
you'll be haunted in a different way.
Yes, very much. So to me, it's ripe for ghostly visits and sounds. If you believe in ghosts, that would be a place where you would expect to find lots of them. Mm-hmm. So staff and visitors relay stories of seeing ghost soldiers, wandering Native Americans, and children. So the ghost soldiers and the Native Americans, I have one account of a ghost soldier someone swore they saw, but I haven't found any Native Americans.
Well, I know the Native American people have their own rules, if you will, about the spirit world that doesn't concur to the white man.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't, it's not that they don't believe in ghosts, it's that ghosts follow very specific rules.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I had interviewed, and this was in 2020 when I went down there. I think it was like December 9th or 10th when I went down there and stayed overnight. I interviewed the maintenance technician, Lee Lawton, and the former site manager at the Fort Robinson History Center and Museum, Renee Calder. My intention was to get the story done and have it run the next October. Things didn't work out, so it ran the following year. And they were both very open and told me all kinds of stuff. Renee is a native to Crawford, which is 3 miles down the road, and I forget where Lee had a career someplace else and he retired out here. So he lives full time at the fort, and I think he's still the maintenance tech there. So he's pretty much the dude. If you work for the State Historical Society right now, since it's October, he would be the dude you need to get in touch with to get buildings open and that kind of stuff. So my story was published in that publication that no longer exists. So I wanted to quote from it because they had really good stories, and the way that they told them, even though I'm a skeptic, I sit there and I'm like, really? Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. And I think this story should be out there. And just because the publication goes offline, I don't think the story should be lost forever.
No.
So part of Lee's job was to make sure buildings were unlocked at the start of the day and locked up at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And of course, he would have to go through and make sure everybody's out of the buildings before he locks them up. Although now, we got cell phones, so you can just call maybe you can call somebody because cell service up there is spotty too.
It is.
Yeah.
It is very spotty.
So one morning as he was opening the buildings at the barracks, and the barracks buildings that he is responsible for are the ones at the old parade ground where the Cheyenne breakout happened, where Crazy Horse was killed, those ones.
But I have a question. Is it the rebuilt ones, or is this before the rebuild? Because that barracks is a rebuilt barracks.
Yeah, it's all the rebuilt ones.
Okay, so haunted houses don't have to be old buildings. They can be just like
new
buildings.
Because they were
on top of old buildings.
Yeah, they're rebuilt right on top of where the old buildings were. So I guess the ghosts
that's what makes it happen.
Yeah, so the ghosts don't know that it's a new building. It looks the same. So one morning he was opening the building at the barracks building where the Northern Cheyenne were imprisoned in 1879. And he heard someone walking across the floor. He turned around to say good morning, and nobody was there. Make of that what you will. To me, that's house settling.
But in the Cheyenne outbreak, did we talk about the Cheyenne outbreak?
No, because that's part of Fort Robinson, and we haven't gotten to it yet.
But they get out under the floorboards, which adds some creepiness to the story.
Yes.
I get that. But that being said, if this new site, this new house has any, opening of the floorboards, any critter or vermin can get in there and make tapping sounds.
Yeah. Yeah. So he heard the footsteps coming across the stairs, but he was completely alone.
Dun, dun, dun.
And right after that, he heard the faint sound of drums, and he wondered what was going on. And as soon as the sound started, they stopped. So, like, he heard the sounds. He thought, what the heck is that? And they stopped. And there's no video equipment in the area to verify his story, even if you wanted to.
There is no cameras to this day out there, is there? When we went out there, I didn't see many, if there were. Maybe there was one at the museum.
The museum has several cameras because they have a lot of historical artifacts and stuff that's worth money.
Like the veterinarian's hospital didn't have cameras.
No.
The general hall, I don't remember it had cameras, unless it had one maybe at the entrance.
Yeah, and I was up there last year before, and they still didn't. I think the museum is the only place that has them.
Yeah, for obvious reasons, yeah.
And the cameras will become important in a little bit because they were reviewed for one particular instance. But here they weren't. And for anyone who has not been to that building, there is 3 steps up. It's a very long rectangle-shaped building.
Yeah,
and
it's a cabin.
Yeah,
it's a longhouse cabin.
Yeah, and they used it as a barracks, and then they used it to house the Cheyenne.
Yep.
And so on each end of the building, there's 3 steps onto the very, very long porch. And that's kind of where he heard the noise.
Yeah, sure.
So I don't know. I've sat out there. You and I have talked many times about, I don't know, I just feel this connection, the Crazy Horse, for some reason. And whenever I go up there to hike, I will go to the little shop at the intersection of the highway down in Crawford, and I'll get a burger and fries, and then I go and I sit at the Cheyenne Breakout and eat my lunch there and just kind of sit and think and contemplate things in life. And I've never had an encounter of anything other than real people.
Yeah. Well, did you go in the middle of the winter, in the middle of the night?
I have once when they reenacted the Cheyenne Breakout, yes. And still didn't
hear nothing.
Yeah. And we'll get to it later, but supposedly it's because I'm not attuned to that. So footsteps aren't the only thing reported at the site of the Cheyenne Breakout. Each year, the Northern Cheyenne travel from their home in Montana to recreate the breakout, and youth take turns running back to the reservation in a nonstop run.
And again, that's haunting, in a different way.
Yes.
If you were to watch that, understand the history, and realize what they're reenacting, it is very, very spooky.
Yeah.
It is.
And the year that I went and the youth broke out of the barracks, so to speak, I was told, I did not see this, that the coldness of the night air revealed faces in their exhaled breath. So it's
also kind of poetic.
Yeah.
So I don't know, was that meant to be literal or was it meant to be poetic?
Yeah, I don't know. I would take it more as poetic.
Yeah.
But maybe they thought it was more real. And then another year, as the adults were beginning their prayers. So this was the year after I went. And Sandra Reddish had relayed this story to me. She said that the coyotes could be heard in the distance, just howling and howling and howling. And then they start at Comanche Hall. So the elders start at Comanche Hall and walk over to the barracks. And as they go, they sing prayers. And then they'll stop and say prayers, then walk a little more prayers until they get to the barracks. And then the youth come along later. And we'll get to that when I do the whole episode on Fort Robb. It's just I know it's going to take a long time, and I want to have it all finished.
You want to do that one right.
Yeah,
for sure.
I definitely want to get it right. And so as they're heading out toward the barracks, you could hear the coyotes over by where the Red Cloud Agency was. And it just got louder and louder and louder. And it sounded like the coyotes were getting closer to the fort. And many of the Northern Cheyenne said in all the years they had been coming, 97, I think, was the first year they started doing the reenactment. And this was 2018 or 19. They had never heard the coyotes that loud before.
Oh, well, at least they said that loud, because I'm like, if you've been that long and you're about to say you've never heard coyotes, I've been up there several times and heard coyotes.
Yeah.
You must have corn stuff in your ears.
No, they just not that loud and not that many.
Sure. That could be explained multiple ways, but yeah, haunting.
Yes. And it got to the point where their howls were drowning out the sounds of the prayers. Mm-hmm. And then Lee said it sounded like there were thousands of coyotes out there. I don't know, 10, 12 coyotes can make quite a racket if they want to. But who knows? Because the breakout takes place around 10 o'clock at night, which is around the time that the breakout happened. So they try and get as close to that time as they can. So it's already dark out there, you know.
And and that area is wooded, hilled, and sheltered, so coyotes being there isn't surprising.
Yeah, it's perfectly
that's where
normal.
Their hunting ground is,
So Lee had said that he listened to coyotes every night, and not once had he ever heard them do that in like a huge group. And
so the big questions would have been more auspicious that the coyotes were so loud that night, or if you heard them every night, that they didn't howl at all that night. And that would have been the creepy thing.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder.
Yeah. And that's the creepy thing coming up. After they did their prayer and they started walking closer to the museum, the coyotes just fell silent. And it was completely quiet after that. And so the Northern Cheyenne that were there took that as a positive sign, and the white folks were kind of creeped out because here's coyotes howling way more than normal.
Don't worry, whiteys, you all right.
Yeah.
All right.
So got a little off track there, but back at the vet hospital, Lee was in the building one day in the basement, and he was turning the water on for, I think, the spring, make sure everything's working and running because we're going to open up here pretty soon. And he heard the sound of horseshoes on asphalt. I am pretty sure that it was not asphalt at the beginning of the fort. I don't know when the asphalt got laid down. Maybe when it was World War II place.
It would have been around that time.
Yeah.
I remember actually asking when I was there that, because a lot of the old World War I pictures, there is no asphalt. It's still all dirt.
So it would have been when they were training the horses for World War II, I'm guessing. Okay.
And more transportation vehicles in general were more
up there.
Common to have up there.
Yeah. So he assumes it's a horse-drawn carriage that's part of the tour that goes, I don't know if you've ever ridden on it. I've ridden on it once. But it takes you all around and tells you stuff.
You and I went together one time.
Oh my God,
remember?
yes, it was us. I'm like, who did I go up there with?
Me.
I'm old, people. That's the only time I've been on a
really?
horse-drawn carriage tour. Yeah.
They're all really fun. I did the horseback, I did the carriage, and I did the jeeps.
Okay. I've done the
all,
jeeps.
They've all been fun.
I've done the jeeps and the carriage, and yes, I enjoyed both of them. I have not done a horseback ride, but I think I might
It's enjoyable.
do that.
It's very enjoyable to do horseback riding.
Okay.
Even if they are ghost horses.
Yeah. It'd be like me being Wonder Woman in her invisible plane, and, you just see a lady up in the air sitting, flying. And I'd just be...
They never could tell you how she ever found that thing.
Yeah. I was a kid. I didn't care. She just had this cool invisible plane. And I don't understand if you go inside the invisible plane, how you're
why is
visible.
she so visible? And then if that's the case, what's the point of having an invisible plane?
Yeah.
If it just shows your body sitting.
Because it's easier to spot her than there's a lady in the air just sitting and she's flying. That's where all our ghost stories come from, was Wonder Woman and her invisible plane.
Yeah. I noticed that in the new movies, they didn't really make that a thing, her invisible plane.
Yeah, thank God. So he hears the sounds, and that he thought they were coming from the alleyway and that it was the carriage tour. So he goes upstairs. He's going to pop outside and say hello to the folks on the tour, and there's nothing out there. So make of that what you will. In October 2019, he was shutting things down for the winter and decided to use the restroom in the vet building. And if you've never been in there, you walk through these giant doors because horses are huge.
Yeah.
And there's a door right to your right that used to be somebody's office, and I forget whose, but there's a little museum in there. Mm-hmm. And then right next to it is where the toilets are.
Yep.
So that's where he's at. I'm assuming he's peeing. I don't know. I didn't ask that part. He just said he had to go to the bathroom. So he goes in there to use the restroom, and he heard the sound of horses on the other side of the door. That's creepy to me, because if I'm sitting in there, I'm a little more vulnerable, regardless of whether it's number 1 or 2. And if I hear horses clopping around outside, it's a little creepy feeling.
Yeah.
And so, you pop in there to go pee, and all these phantom horses are like, woo, we're going to go scare that human now. At least I'm in the right place if I'm going to be scared shitless. And he said that you always feel like someone's watching you there, and he knows he heard it, but there was nothing there. But he still felt like someone was watching him. Everyone that has ever reported anything from the vet hospital is animals. It's never been human sounds. It's always been animal sounds.
Interesting. And again, it's a creepy veterinarian place in and of itself. It is creepy as hell. It's almost medieval looking. I mean, it has these huge tools, because of course, how horses, you have to use big surgical equipment. Mm-hmm. So they have these saws hanging on the wall, and knives and pliers and yank things, and it's just it's creepy. It looks like a torture chamber for horses.
Yes.
not a medical place.
It's the one building that I don't like being in at all.
I don't like it either. And it's very, very dark. It's not well lit. Never has been well lit.
No. And that just adds to the ambiance.
Adds to the creepiness.
So, I often wonder too, since if you work up there year round, you hear the horses year round. I just took a trip 3 hours north and took a week off of life. I can't tell you how many times, even though there's no cell signal where I was at, how many times I picked up my phone because I thought I heard a text message. Mm-hmm. So I often wonder, is this what you're hearing when you hear the hoof clops?
Or you get the phantom vibrating syndrome. I get that, where you think your phone's vibrating.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the times when it happens to me, I don't even have my phone on me.
Yeah.
And my leg's vibrating, and that's a natural condition that you can do. You can get into, so.
So, we can always have that, what's his name, Zach Baggins from the Ghost Hunters. I used to laugh when I watched that show because... Oh, God. Anyway.
They were there when they did the Alex Johnson. I was around, and they didn't impress me when they did AJ's. The Alex Johnson, ladies and gentlemen, is in Rapid City. It's one of the oldest hotels in Rapid City. Famous place. It's around since World War I, but it's haunted. Of course it's haunted. Of
course it is.
And to the hotel's credit, many people died there. At least 18, I believe, people have died there, and most of them have been suicides. So that's creepy.
Yeah.
Getting away from this a little bit, but that being said, I went there all the time in the middle of the night. I was there for doing really late shifts, or I'd start at midnight, especially during New Year. We'd have the New Year Jamboree, so you wouldn't get there till 11:30, 10 o'clock at night, and be there till 4 in the morning. So, it's the creepy time. And there's a lot of ballrooms that are old antique-looking places that are just empty. And you always hear stuff. Always. You hear cricks and cracks and groans and footsteps, and it never stops. So I guess I just kind of got used to it. But those ghost hunters, man, every time they just jump out of their skin, like, did you hear that? I'm like, yeah, it's probably Allie. It's probably the vent system banging on the pipes. I mean, it's like this. You guys realize how old this place is?
Oh, gosh. So, Renee has told me on 2 occasions when she opened up the vet hospital, it reeked of horse crap. And so for folks that don't know,
you're downwind. You're literally downwind from the stables.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But that's okay. I was just going to add that horses today don't go in there. It is strictly a little museum.
That's true. Horses. Well, I mean, I suppose if one wandered, one could wander in there. It's not like it's shut off.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
You smell horse crap. Was the wind strong?
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you guys, it's right next to the stables.
And the thing that I wondered as well, I had a teacher in the 1980s. So this would have been 85, 86. She told me about her trip to Auschwitz. And she said you could still smell the burning from the bodies.
I've been told that too, and I call malarkey, but
and she tried to figure it out scientifically, and she was like, well, how many thousands of people went through there, and no one's really cleaned it up, so there really hasn't been any time for the stench.
You're smelling tourist BO. That's what you're smelling. You're not smelling dead bodies. You're smelling your fellow tourists' BO.
So
they all stink.
So I'm like, I don't know. Is it lingering? Did you just get I don't know. Whatever. But she swears she smelled fresh horse crap. And I thought the neat thing about that story was that whenever she goes in there, she talks to the horses that aren't there and says, "Hi, babies, how are you doing?" Just like you would talk to your live ones. And I just thought it was a sweet little gesture,
Sure. I hope people listening don't think I'm heckling them too bad. If you believe in ghosts, good for you. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's just the stories are rather humorous to me sometimes.
Yeah.
Like smelling horse crap instead of smelling formaldehyde, which almost to me would have made more sense as a weird smell. All of a sudden smells like formaldehyde, because formaldehyde hasn't been used there for years.
Yeah.
So
but
smelling horse crap when the stables are nearby.
Yeah.
It's like, well.
And I could see myself, even if I don't believe in ghosts, I could see myself if I had to go and open that place every day, or even on occasion, go in there and talk to the nice invisible horses, because I just want to open the door and go do my job. I don't want to be bothered by ghosts. But she embraces it, which is great.
It's fine.
So while I was talking with the folks up there, I told them I've never seen or heard anything, and I spend most of my time at the fort in the off season, precisely because I don't want to be around people. So they told me I have to be attuned to it. I don't know. There are other people that are skeptical about it, but if you live and work there year round, you probably do hear some things that aren't explainable, that you can't that's the furnace kicking on.
And we have our stories. I have two that come to mind that were creepy at the very least. I don't know, supernatural, but creepy. Yeah. I have 2 stories in my life that I haven't been able to explain. And I assumed I was seeing things, and I was a little kid, and then the other one, Paul, was with me. And so when I was a little kid, my second cousins enjoyed using the Ouija board, and they heard a noise downstairs, so they
they send 7-year-old Irene downstairs. They are all teenagers. And I thought I saw this like red demon thing scratching up the stacks of newspapers. And so when I was in school, even when I went to high school, the marching band collected newspapers once a year, turned them in for money to support the band. And so my second cousins were in marching band too, so they always had stacks of papers down there. I just assume I was seeing things because the whole night was hyped up to calling spirits and seeing things and stuff, and I'm just a little tiny kid. The other one, I was laying in bed in our apartment, and if I looked to the left, our door was there. And I know I was experiencing sleep paralysis. I didn't know what it was at the time, but I couldn't move. I could move my head, and that was it. And I now know that it's sleep paralysis, and I've experienced that off and on my entire life. And now that I know what it is, it's a lot easier to deal with. And I don't, it's more of a, oh, dang it, when it happens now rather than getting freaked out.
Sure.
But I looked to the left, and there was a tall, dark figure with a hat on. And I looked at him. I think it was a him. And I went to look away, and as I'm looking away, he walked away into our kitchen in our apartment. And I keep turning my head, and Paul's awake, and he looks at me, and he goes, "Who was that?" So I got creeped out. We hopped up, turned every light on in the house, because we're not stupid like people in the movies where, oh, there's an evil guy that wants to kill us in this house. We're not going to turn any lights on. Yeah, I'm like, no, every light's going on. And the front door was still locked, and the two not deadbolts, the chain locks, we had two of them. They were, so I don't know what the hell that was. And it's the only thing I've never been able to scientifically explain in my life, but it's one thing out of 54 years that has happened to me.
Well, and you also don't, just because you see a ghost doesn't necessarily mean that what you think it means. If you think you saw a ghost, I guess is basically kind of the argument through ignorance.
Yeah.
Fallacy.
Yes.
I thought I saw something. Therefore, ghosts and demons and unicorns and pixies, they all exist because I thought I heard something.
Yeah.
Or saw something.
So it's the only thing I've never been able to explain in my life. And it's a fun, creepy story to tell, but it doesn't affect my life in any way because I've never seen or heard anything else.
And my two creepy stories are at Fort Robinson. So these are two things that actually happened to me at Fort Robinson. So they were creepy. Okay. So yeah.
Okay. So back to our story, and I'm being told I have to be attuned to it to be able to see or hear anything.
Do you need a fork? Ping.
Maybe that's what I'm missing. I need to get a tuning fork and go up there and then see if I see anything.
That's what the ghost hunters do.
Yeah.
Tuning forks.
But I don't know. I just don't believe in it. But creepy stories are fun sometimes, you know. I don't watch horror movies anymore, mainly because one horror movie reminds me of some traumatic things that happened to me as a child. But in general, I don't get entertainment or joy out of having the crap scared out of me in a movie.
I just don't find horror films that scary. I find them very, very dull.
Yeah.
My husband loves them. He loves horror films. I'm terrible because every time I'm like, this guy did it. He's right behind the corner. He's about to come out right now. And Jason's like, shut up. How do you know that? It's like, because it's all the same formula.
Yes. The first time I saw Candyman, like the original one, and they're walking by the building, and you can hear the dog barking, and I'm looking at the scenery. I'm like, jump scare. Jump scare. And then all of a sudden, dog's right there. Jump scare. See, told you.
Anytime it gets a little too quiet, there's music, and all of a sudden there's no music. And then there's music again. It's like, So I was invited to spend the night at the Fort Robinson History Center and Museum, and I'm not going to tell you who invited me and who let me stay because I don't want that person to lose their job or get in trouble because
It's not supposed to happen, and it also happened 4 years ago. So bite me. Good luck trying to figure out who that was.
I'm sure that it happens more often than you think.
Yeah.
For Robinson, again, for our audience's sake, I mean, it's not like any museum you'll see in the South, like the Confederate museums or the old war sites or stuff like that. It's not exactly like that. It's very secluded. It's very open to the public. It's very accessible. There's not a giant gate around it. There's no protesters that come protesting things, at least not a lot. So, you know.
Yeah.
It's an open, it really is a park.
Yes.
It really is a park.
Yes. And you can go there any time that you want.
Yeah, even in the wintertime, there's no one stopping you, as long as you have, of course, you have your pass, your state park sticker.
Yeah.
No one's stopping you from walking around or doing what you want, as long as you're polite.
Yeah, as long as you're not a jerk about whatever.
Yeah, you might have someone come out and ask, like, hey, can I help you? But I've been out there so many times, midwinter, early spring, before they open, and no one's out there.
Yeah. So I was invited to stay, and in the basement where you can go everywhere in the museum, it used to be the post headquarters, and you can go everywhere in the building other than the basement. The basement, you literally walk down the stairs. There's a big old room down there that's the staff break room, and then there's a room with a toilet. I forget what the other room is. I think it's the state archaeologist's office. And then there's at the bottom of the stairs, if you turn left, there's a big old room with bookcases in it. And there was a cot in that room, and that's the cot that I slept on. And the only creepy thing I had all night was there was someone, I don't want to say it was a crappy painting because they can paint better than me, but it was supposed to be Red Cloud, and it was not a very good painting of Red Cloud, and the eyes creeped me out. And there was just enough light in the basement that every time I woke up, I look up to my right on the wall, and there's that creepy Red Cloud looking down at me. That was creepy to me, but it's just because of the way the eyes were painted in the painting. I ended up getting up early, and I started looking at all the books on the bookshelves, and then started reading stuff, because they have books there that are pretty rare, and they're used mostly for research. So that's in general why they don't let the public go down in the basement, because it's for their research and stuff. Yeah. But it was very cool to be down there. And there's supposed to be a spirit in that room as well, and you'll know that spirit is in that room if you smell lye soap. I did not smell lye soap at all. People who work there have reported it several times. And they just get what they need and get back out because they're creeped out.
I guess in many places in Fort Robinson, I get hints of lye, but that's what they use to sanitize. Even in that veterinarian place, every now and then you'll get like a little hint of lye. Yeah. So I guess that's normal. It's what you used to clean stuff back in the day, folks. I mean, you used lye for everything. So I wouldn't be surprised if lye was a building material too. Because, if you have daub and wattle houses in London, that's what it is. It's lye that they use to
okay.
That's that white stuff in those old daub and wattle houses. That's what that white stuff is lye.
Okay.
So it's an incredible, useful building material. It's incredibly easy to make, especially since they have all the wood there, because all you do is burn down the wood to ash, and you mix it with water. And then I think you put it in another device, like a kettle or something, and bring that up to a boil. You basically got lye.
Oh.
I might have missed a chemical step there, so but it's more or less how lye is made. It's incredibly easy to make lye. So that's why it was used for building materials. So it wouldn't surprise me if they use lye as some sort of cement.
So it could be a case of just things being shifted around brings that smell up. Because I'm reminded of when my grandma passed away, my mom and my aunt insisted they smelled my grandma's perfume in the house, and that grandma was in the house when they were there cleaning. And I'm like, no, you were moving her crap around and you're bringing
stuff it all up.
Yeah.
And your stuff is soaked in perfume all over.
Yeah. So. And that's what I was thinking, but I let it go because they were.
You don't want to be insensitive.
Yeah, I'm not going to be that person. But I
was like with these guys. It's like, well, if lie's your confirmation, then go with it.
Go with it. And if you're okay with old soldiers chilling out in the building, okay. But there was nothing there all night. And Paul went with me, and we shared a cot. That was not comfortable at all. The only way we could share a cot was, the head to foot. So his feet were in my face all night, my feet were in his face all night. That was the only way the two of us could fit on the cot. And he slept all night. So he didn't see or hear anything either because he was asleep. I woke up because I naturally wake up many, many times during the night because of my PTSD. So I was just awake naturally, and then I would purposely stay awake for 10 or 15 minutes, even with my eyes closed, to see if I heard or smelled anything. Nothing, and didn't see anything either. So
we're carrying your tuning fork.
I swear to God, I'm going to go buy a tuning fork and give it to you for Christmas.
There you go. I always used to play with my moms. My mom was a police officer, as you know.
Yeah.
That's what they use to calibrate their speed trap machines. Their radar machines. Yeah, so you have to bang the tuning fork and you have to hold it up to the radar. And it has, since the tuning fork vibrates at a certain frequency, it'll give you the readout in miles per hour. So you know that you're correct.
Okay.
Your equipment's correct. Yeah, it's kind of cool.
That's awesome.
So I used to steal her fork all the time. I'm like, ping.
Oh, I am so going to get you one so you can annoy her and Jason.
Oh, yeah, I will.
Nice. So I'm going to quote from my article again. And if y'all notice me pausing when I'm reading from my article, I literally just cut and pasted this stuff because I knew the sections where I wanted. And This was my rough draft, so it's not the final version that was out there. So any typos and stuff got fixed. But every now and then I'm like, what? Why did I type that? Oh, yeah, I'm doing a podcast. Keep reading. So in 2018, an employee went upstairs in the museum to make sure the building was empty so she could close up for the night. As she turns on the landing, a soldier was standing at the top of the stairs. People she told the story to said she must have seen the uniform on display at the top of the stairs. She insisted it wasn't the display, which is against the wall. The soldier was standing directly at the top of the stairs. And so I have been there. I have seen that uniform. If someone was playing a joke, they would have had to pull that heavy display off of the side of the wall, move it to the left about 3 or 4 feet, and then bring it to the edge of the stairs another 3 or 4 feet. And then it's still a uniform in a display case, and it's only the top half of the uniform. So I don't know. I don't know what she saw, but she swore she saw a dude standing up there. That would creep me out. And admittedly, right after I was told that story, I had to go up to the second floor because I was also working on another story. And that thought was on my mind as I because you go up the stairs and you round a landing and then go up to the top of the stairs. And yeah, as I'm going up the first bit of stairs, I'm like, yeah, I really hope this isn't true. And of course, there was nothing there. I went up, got my pictures. Because up there on the second floor, there's also a shirt that was used in a ghost dance. And all the pictures I had at the time had horrible reflections. Gotcha. And so because when I went to visit them, it was closed. They had already closed for the day. I didn't have to worry about trying to finagle around a person looking at the display, which is why all my pictures had reflections. I could just go up there and get the best picture I could get. So, I don't know. Make of that what you will. On another day, Lee was repairing a wall in the museum and saw something out of the corner of his eye. He thought he was mistaken, because that happens to all of us. You think you see something out of the corner of your eye, you look, and it's nothing. But it happened again. So he went downstairs to see if the archaeologist that was, because they do have a state archaeologist, and that person stays at the museum and usually sleeps on that cot from time to time when they're out there for a few weeks. So they thought this dude was down there, and there was no one in the building except for Lee. And he's like, I don't know what I saw. I thought I saw a person. The basement of the museum also has lots and lots of lingering questions. Now, again, staff only go down there if they got to go pee or they're heating up their lunch in the break room. Most of the time, they heat their lunch up and then come back upstairs. And if you've ever been in the museum, when you walk in, to the left is the gift shop, but it's a one of those big old open rooms where the back part of the room was a sitting area, and that area is where their pretty much daytime offices. So they can be in the office doing their work. Someone comes in the gift shop, they can see them get up and help the customer. So they only ever go downstairs just to heat up their lunches. And I don't understand why they just don't bring the microwave upstairs, because that would make more sense to me, but whatever.
You have to be creepy. You have to go down there to see if creepy stuff happens. If you close it off entirely, you will never know.
Yeah, there you go.
It's almost like you got to put yourself into that vulnerable position. That
Yes.
kind of goes around my ghost stories myself. So.
Okay. I should make you tell your ghost
I'm
stories.
ready. I didn't know if
Okay.
you wanted to
Yeah.
put it where
Well,
you wanted
let me do the
Great.
basement, and then
Yeah,
we
do
can
the
we can
basement.
grab it after that, because there's a nice little shift change.
Okay.
There's a little change after this bit. So no one was in the building. The basement of the museum has lots of weird things. Lee has to go down there to conduct maintenance on the boiler. He's heard footsteps when he knows he's the only one in the building. He's heard people walking around upstairs when he's the only one in the building. That to me would be a little unnerving if I was the only one in the building and I'm down there working on the boiler and I hear people walking upstairs. I don't know if I'm going to go upstairs, even if it is live people, because I don't want to die. And if it's live people breaking into the museum, I don't want to die. So I might just, call 911 and be like, hey, there's people up here. So he hears people walking down the hallway from the back exhibit on the first floor, right above him. So when you walk in the front entrance, if you turn right, there's a very long hallway, and it empties out into another room. And that very long hallway has a men's and a women's bathroom on the left. On the right, there's an open room with seating and a video about the history of the place. And then at the very end, it takes you through the Indian Wars time of the fort in that room. So he's heard people walking up and down that hallway. I have to admit, walking down that hallway is a little unnerving for me, but again, I can't explain this connection that I feel. I've talked to my Lakota friends, and they're like, stop questioning it, just go with it. But that hallway is also lined with pictures of Native American, I believe it's all Sioux. I think it's all Lakota. And just, I know all those people's stories, and those people are looking out at me from those pictures, and they're dead and gone. Yeah. And it's just that feeling.
A basic experiment would be to take all those pictures down, paint that hallway bubblegum pink, and still see if you feel that feeling.
Yeah. And I honestly...
I'm sorry, to your Lakota friends, I would be questioning it.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I'm going to get down to this.
Yeah. And I do think it's because I have read their stories, I've heard their stories, I know how horrible we were to them. And it's just that feeling every time I walk down that hallway, because that whole room at the end of the hallway is about that. So I think it's that sense of dread. I know what happened, and it's a terrible, terrible story. But it's not a sense of they're actually looking at me from the pictures. And it's not a sense of I expect to see one of them standing there at the end of the hallway. It's not that feeling at all. It's just a feeling of more of sadness, and that it's history, and it's not something I can do now to change what happened. So anyway, Lee has also heard doors shut while he's downstairs in the basement, and again, he's always been alone. The state archaeologist that was out there has also heard things, but that guy's alone down in the basement when he's down there working. So they just basically said they've heard all kinds of weird stuff that they can't explain. To me...
In a basement that's been around since the 1870s.
Yes.
So there's no mice. No mice could ever get in this place. It's too old, damn it.
So to me, when he says there's stuff he can't logically explain, I would add a yet at the end of it, because we don't know.
Well, and again, if you don't question it, you're never going to figure it out, are you? You're never going to figure it out if you just say, oh, well, you know, it must have been a ghost.
Yep. So Lee even said the boiler makes noise, but it doesn't make the noise that sounds like footsteps or doors closing. So he doesn't know what the heck it was. And he said there may be a crack here or there, but it's right down the center of the floor above you. And I know where the boiler is, and that hallway is like right above you. So I'm going to let you tell your story, and then we'll jump back into the rest of Fort Robb here.
So it's not too long. It happened when I was young. I grew up in this area, so Fort Robinson was just something we did every summer. We'd go up to Fort Robinson and do something. It was, back when I was a kid, it was much more staffed. They had so many people, and especially as a kid, I enjoyed all the classes that they did. They did like fun painting classes. They did one where you could make moccasins, learn how to bead moccasins, learn how to do the Indian chokers. We just did all sorts of things. So we'd usually go. This particular summer was our family reunion, so we had rented 3 of those officer cabins, and these officer cabins are huge cabins. They each could fit, I would say, about 20 people, maybe, depending on the size. So it was me and many of my distant family members, and we were all together. And there were 2 bathrooms, neither of which had showers. So if you wanted to take a bath, you had to take a bath if you needed to bathe. So it was my turn. I'd already been there for a few days. So it was my turn to bathe. I was in the tub. The lighting is really, really bad in these barracks halls. Back to the flickering lights thing. Even when they're not flickering, for some reason, it's not like we're in a room right now that's very well lit, in my opinion. Like, I can really see everything. Nothing's well lit. There's like weird shadows that pop up along the wall. Okay. So anyway, I was in the bathtub, and I must have been, I think, 11, 12 years old. And all of a sudden, the lights flickered on and off, and the water went from tepid to frigid cold. That was the weird thing that happened. It was never hot. You couldn't have a hot bath. I don't think to this day you can have a hot bath in Fort Robinson. Even because my other creepy story was up at the pools. But anyway, it's the same thing. It's just the water goes cold really, really fast. But this is a bath. So this was like a pool of water that was just sitting there tepid, and all of a sudden it was freezing once the lights came back on. Don't know what happened to that day with that. I got out of the bath pretty fast.
Yeah, I would too. Not
just because it was cold, but it was just like, oh, well, this is creepy.
Yes.
And it was a creepy tub too. It's a giant old clawfoot tub. And I mean, it could eat. I mean, I could have taken a bath with like 2 or 3 of my other cousins who were my size. I mean, it was just such a huge tub. You could just drown in it.
I grew up in a house with that kind of tub. And we did, because we had a water shortage, there were 3 of us at one time in the tub.
Oh, yeah. Well, then me and my sisters did that when we were young, too. Yeah. It's what you did. Yeah.
Yes.
Had to conserve water. But anyway, yeah, that was one of probably the creepier things. And that night, coyotes were howling very, very loudly that night. I remember that, too. I don't know if it was as loud as the Cheyenne outbreak, but it was pretty loud that night, I thought, because we had a puppy. We had a little poodle named Daisy, and we brought her with that time with us, and she would not leave the front porch. She was just shaking because of the coyotes were just howling and howling and howling. Wow. She would just stand there and shake. She wouldn't
Poor
bark.
Dog.
She would just stand there and shake. So yeah, that was the only like one of 2 really creepy things that happened.
Okay.
The place is just old.
Yeah.
I find it very fascinating that all these ghost stories thus far that we've explained haven't gone any time before 1874. Yeah. So, the museum, I heard the horses in the veterinarian. Okay, you hear horse noises. Why don't you hear mammoth noises in the museum? Wouldn't you think you would?
I would think so.
Like elephants trumpeting. For those who don't know about our museum, we have 2 mammoths who were fighting and fell on top of a wolf and died.
Yeah, because their horns got interlocked and they couldn't
unlock them. So they died and got fossilized that way. And we're famous for that.
Yeah.
I haven't heard any elephants. I haven't heard nobody talk about elephants yet.
Yeah.
Or no trumpeting.
Yeah. Yeah.
or a lonely wolf howl.
Yeah.
Going, oh, like, get off me.
So on December 6th, 2019, and I actually got the date from Lee, so we can at least date this incident. He was putting up Christmas lights on the banister and railing leading to the 2nd floor. He plugged the lights into the larger of the 2 rooms upstairs, and we're still at the museum building, and there are just 2 rooms upstairs, and they are rather large. And he had a 4-foot section of lights that had no power. So he thought, this string of lights is bad. So he replaced the lights with another string and zip-tied them to the ceiling, or not ceiling, the railing. He went downstairs and put another set on the lower banister. When he returned to the top of the stairs, there was a 4-foot span of lights out. So he's all frustrated because you're like, what the heck? So he goes over to the stairs to cut the zip tie so he could replace that set of lights, and they turned back on. To me, there's a short somewhere in this long chain.
How old are these lights?
Yeah. So he cut the zip ties anyway and rechecked every string of lights to all the sockets in the museum, and all the lights worked every single time. He also checked all the lights in the basement before he began putting them up that day. So before he even started this project, he checked all the lights in the basement, comes upstairs. He's had a 4-foot section not work, so he undoes all of his work. And if it's me, I'm getting to the point where I'm like, don't care if it's out. Don't care. I've done this 3 times now.
This seems like something off of National Lampoon or something.
Yeah. But I'm just thinking there's a short somewhere, and at some point I'm just going to be like, whatever. I don't care. Screw it. I don't care. So he put the lights back on the banister and went back downstairs. When he came back later, that same 4-foot section was out again. So this is the 3rd time that 4-foot section is out again. If it's me, I don't care. I'm a terrible worker, I guess, but I don't care. I've already messed with this now 4 times today.
Yeah. I'm at least going to wait till tomorrow to deal with this.
Yeah. When he looked a little bit later on, because he got to that point too, when he looked a little later on, that 4-foot section was on, and then it was out again. So, yeah, I'm not doing anything. So he went back downstairs again and got more lights, and when he went back, it was back on. And he was just about to say, the heck with it. I'm done. I'm not even going to try. Because he'd already kind of was that way.
What if it's just on a slow blink? What if it's just on a really slow blinker? Like blink, 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 blink.
So he reached in his back pocket to grab a green zip tie. And he had a whole bunch of them in his back pocket, and they were no longer there. So he assumed they had fallen out in the constant back and forth, trying to make the lights work. And he thought that, they'd be strewn all over the stairs. But he turned around, and they were at the top of the stairs, and he said it looked like someone picked them up and put them neatly in a bundle. I even said to him that day, that's probably where they just fell out of your pocket. And he insists no. Who knows? But after that, the lights kind of worked.
Kind of worked. I like the ending to that story. Well, the lights, they kind of worked.
Yeah. I still think that there probably is a short somewhere in the system.
Or it's just bad lights. Yeah. Or like I said, it's on a slow blinker. It's like it's what's supposed to do. I had those, on my Christmas tree. Well, they'll blink on for a solid 5-10 minutes and then blink off for a solid 5-10 minutes. And if you come at the wrong time, you're going to get quite the shock.
And it could be just that one section of lights. That's the way it was.
Yeah, well, and you remember before they have it now where they have like little diodes that let you do everything, or, well, hell, now you can do it from your phone. But it was just, you can only tell if it was a blinker, if it was a clear light with a red tip. And those are your blinker lights. So when I was a kid, my grandpa would take those blinker lights and use iridescent paint and paint those ones red with the rest of the red so it didn't show up white. So what's the chance that someone else did what my grandpa did?
Yeah. Yeah. So Renee was working with Lee that same day, and she said she's had her fair share with run-ins with ghosts at the museum. And on that particular day, she and Lee had been trading barbs and joking around most of the day. And Renee said the ghost was defending her in its own way by ticking her off. She said the ghost is a he, and he likes her. And Lee had been giving her crap all day, so the ghost decided to mess with Lee. I've been in the office when the two of them were there. Renee has since moved on to a better, high-paying job. Not that that's not a good job, but a higher-paying job that she needs more money than what the museum paid. And that's a very bad way. I'm not disparaging the position she had at the museum. So they bantered back and forth all the time, trading barbs and quips all the time. And she commented how Lee is sometimes a jokester and he thinks it's hilarious. And so she thinks that's why the ghost did that to him. So at the same time, or during the same day with the light incident, Lee was carrying some books upstairs from the basement and decided to scare Renee. And after he did, the light started to flicker. So she told Lee, they are pissed that you scared me. You have to tell them that you're doing lights for Christmas and leave me alone, and they'll stop bugging you. So I'm like, okay. I just find it funny that a ghost is defending her when she could haul off and smack him anytime she wanted to. So the ghost has never given her any trouble that are in the building. On one of her more memorable occasions, she had checked the museum twice after closing to make sure the building was empty and she could go home when she heard footsteps upstairs. So naturally, you're thinking, I missed somebody. So twice she went and checked, there was no one there, and then after hearing the footsteps a third time, she went to the bottom of the stairs and yelled, "You need to stop. I have work to get done so I can go home." And the sound stopped. She finished her work and went home for the night. Was it a ghost? Who knows?
Maybe it was Bastian Balthazar books trying to read the never-ending story. Again, there's not a lot of cameras out here, folks.
Yeah.
Someone sneaking in isn't exactly hard. Not just a human, but an animal.
Yeah.
Of any kind.
Yeah. On one of the first times she closed by herself, Renee heard a man laughing upstairs, so that would creep me out if I...
That would be a bit more creepy if you heard an actual voice that wasn't like just thump, thump, thump.
Yeah. So there had been a gentleman visiting the museum, and she thought he was still upstairs and that he was on his phone. He had left, but Renee heard that sound coming again from upstairs. So she described it as a deep, boisterous laugh, something akin to what you would expect Santa's laugh. Yeah. So she thought to herself there was nothing there and did a sweep of the building. She heard the laugh a third time, so she responded.
What if it was Santa?
Yeah.
So, you ever thought that, Mr. Supernatural?
So she literally said, "Look, I have to go pick up my kid. I'm done messing around with you." And it stopped. So Okay, the ghost was like, all right, sorry, ma'am. That would have been better, okay? If the ghost was laughing and now it knows that it's keeping her from going to pick up her kid. If I was the ghost, I would have been like, sorry, ma'am. But I would have said it like like land shark. Sorry, ma'am.
Sorry, ma'am. That probably would have been the point where I'm like, done.
Yeah, if it responded and said, sorry, ma'am, I'm locking the building up and leaving. And I'd be calling Sandra, who was her boss. I'd be like, yeah, doors are locked. I don't care. I'm not going back there today.
But at the same time, again, given the size of Fort Robinson, I had the acreage. You told me the acreage once upon a time, but it's quite, as we keep saying, it is a large area.
Yeah.
How hard would it be to, pull a Scooby-Doo villain on this? Just be a jerk. Like, just goes out there every now and then to scare the shit out of people. It's like, what are you going to do? It's a ghost. It's like, well, if you're scared enough, you're not going to investigate. So if I just, wanted to break into a cool place, like Scooby-Doo, and be there for a while, all you have to really do is scare them. Yeah. And just, they're not going to come investigate or really come and wonder. Like she said, she didn't go upstairs. Yeah.
It
makes you, that skepticism there.
Yeah. She had already been up there, 2 or 3 times at that point, and then she was like, all right, I'm done. Knock it off. Yeah. And I'm the kind of person too, if I hear something that I think is danger, I'm not running to it. I'm running away from it.
Right. The general common sense, good old American who has watched horror shows all their lives know that the stupid ones are the ones that go and investigate the noise. Yes. And they get killed in the movies. So why would you be that stupid person? Yes. You'd run away all the time.
And the other stupid ones go upstairs to get away from the bad guy who's going to kill you. There's nowhere for you to run. You're trapped upstairs. Are you going to jump out a two-story window? No, I'm running out the front door, finding a car, and getting the hell out of there.
Well, and that fear is evolutionary. I hope that doesn't make anybody mad I said the E word, but it is evolutionary in us. We are programmed that way, to run away from fear more than we are programmed to go investigate it. Yep.
And, my nephew's a volunteer fireman, and he said that was one of the hardest things about the job. He could carry the hoses, put the fires out. The hardest thing for him was to break his instinct and go in the building.
Yeah, break that flight or flight response and actually go. Yeah, it'd have to be incredibly difficult.
So about the lye smell in the basement, Renee said the ghost in the basement is different from the ones upstairs, and she said although the building is old, it only has a musty smell when the ghost is around. And again, when I was in the basement, I didn't smell anything musty.
Oh, I guess I take a different approach. That whole place smells musty to me.
Okay.
The whole place smells musty to me. Every barrack, every museum, except the new one.
Okay.
That's how the Cheyenne Amber wink's so new, because it smells like freshly polished wood. But, even the restaurant smelled musty. It has a sort of dankness to it.
So I grew up in a very dank, musty, dirty house. So that's what my comparison is. Mm-hmm. So it
didn't smell like good old New York musk.
No. So that's what so maybe it's a degree of musty there.
To me, it smells like, I often describe it as, it smells like if you go to an old school or an old church, how it smells. It's a combination of old varnished wood, old cleaning products, and human BO.
Okay.
That's what it smells like.
So Renee and Lee both agree that the smell moves around in the basement as well. And that again reminds me of my grandma. They would smell it on the stairs in her room downstairs. And I'm like, yeah, you're moving her crap all around as you're going through it. I don't know. They attribute it to the ghost that stays in the basement. And Lee commented that it was there's a musky smell that you would attribute to a soldier. And to me, that means nobody got baths often up there.
Which we know is untrue. Yeah. We actually know that that's not true. Fort Robinson's hygiene program was state-of-the-art at the time. Yeah. So you're actually almost going against your history there.
Yeah. So. But, in the summer, they got those wool uniforms on. maybe during the day they stink.
You stink.
Yeah.
I wouldn't lie and said you smelled awful. You smelled like horses, for crying out loud. If
Yeah.
you ride a horse, you come off of it, you smell like the horse.
Okay.
You just smell. But I'm just saying, Fort Robinson, as we'll get into, they had a swimming pool. They had a remarkable hygiene program. So, yeah.
But they've both smelled it down there in the basement, so as the state archaeologist.
The basement smells musty.
So one time Renee, shortly after she started working there, she went in the basement to the staff break room, placed her lunch in the microwave, goes upstairs, comes back to get her lunch when it's heated, and a large heavy chair was in front of the doorway just inside the break room. So the door had moved, and no one had been down there except for Renee. She questions Lee and Sandra, who were in the building that day, but they're like, yeah, no, we were not down there. They were upstairs with her, so how did the chair move?
And and when you say museum, you're talking about the fossil museum, right?
No,
Or you're
no,
talking about the main hall, Comanche Hall.
No, not Comanche Hall. Comanche Hall does not have
They don't
a
have
museum.
a museum. Well, the whole thing's a museum.
Yeah.
And that's why I guess I'm
The
confused.
old fort, the commander's building, the big white building with the green trim.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That one. Yeah, because like I said, they're all museums in their own weird way. So I thought you were talking about the Mammoth Museum, and that kind of confused me because I'm like, I thought that was built much, much later.
Yeah, that was built much later. But Renee consistently says it's never anything evil or with malintent. It's just a little unnerving when she encounters
She has better
it.
tuning forks than you do. She would know.
Yes. Maybe I need to borrow her tuning fork and go up there. I don't know. So
if it's not malicious, does that mean the ghost of Crazy Horse isn't there? You would think Crazy Horse out of anybody would just be mad at any white person.
yeah, yeah,
I would think he'd be a little pissed.
yeah, yeah.
Not be too happy.
I haven't heard any stories of
I haven't
anything
either.
over
I've
in
never
that
heard
area.
the ghost of Crazy Horse around that area. Ever.
Nothing. Yeah,
You'd think there would be something.
yeah.
Because like you said, the Cheyenne outbreak, there is reports
Yeah.
of weird, strange events, but I've never heard from anybody
And
about
I wonder if
Crazy
it's
Horse.
yeah. I don't know.
I've actually heard more tales about Crazy Horse hauntings at Crazy Horse Monument than here. And Crazy Horse was probably nowhere near his monument in Custer.
Yeah,
He
because
probably never journeyed anywhere near there.
and everything I ever read about him. Now, this maybe I just haven't gotten to those books, but everything I've read about him, he would go south and east.
Yeah, he wasn't much.
He
known.
wasn't heading north when he would get upset and leave. And
I'm
west.
sure he went to Pahasapa because that's their main site. That's their cradle. So I'm sure he went to Pahasapa sometime to do some sort of rituals. But where his monument is now, that whole story about the Crazy Horse Monument we need to get into because it kind of makes me upset. The Polish people that built it really try to have their good intentions. But anyway, they said that Crazy Horse, there was actually a plaque that says Crazy Horse was killed there, which as me as a Nebraska, I'd be like, hey. It's like, no, he didn't.
No, no.
They've taken that down since.
Good.
That was quite a while ago when that false information was there.
Did they think no one was going to check that story?
The Polish man who Poplaw, whateverich, there was a claim that he made that he shared the same birthday as Crazy Horse, or his death day was his birthday. He was he was an oddball, this guy.
Okay.
Not that Borgum was much better. Borgum was a monster in his own way, but I cannot pronounce his name, Poplaw.
I know who you're talking about, but
the person that did Crazy Horse, he was a bit of a weirdo. Bit of a eccentric, and loved to collect things. But he would talk about hauntings, and other people would talk about hauntings in that place. I'm like, but it was built there recently, It was just a mountain.
I would have a better claim to saying I saw Crazy Horse in my basement, considering his vision that he had. The description seems to fit the monument. And the monument is very sacred to the Lakota. That's why they want the powwow right there at in the shadow of the monument.
Yeah.
But the descriptions of where he had his vision seemed to fit the monument. So my house is only a few miles from the monument.
I'm sorry, when Irene say monument, we're not talking anymore about Crazy Horse Monument. We're talking about the Scotts Bluff Monument.
Yeah, Scotts Bluff National Monument.
Mihapati,
yes.
I think is the Lakota name for it.
Yes.
The hill that goes around or the hill that's hard to go around.
Yes. And I live, 7 miles from it? So I would have a better claim at, I saw Crazy Horse in my basement than this dude. But yeah, okay.
And again, like I keep saying, haunting seems to be going only towards history, and you can do this logic, run this logic game in your mind, folks. Do this real quick. Have you ever heard of a haunting that is like pre to your history? Kind of like I was going back to the mammoths. Mm-hmm. You're not going to hear the mammoths. No. You're not going to hear anything until after 1874, maybe. And then even then, oddly enough, no stories about German prisoner of war ghosts. Mm-hmm. No stories about dogs. You would think you'd have hundreds of dogs that died in the trainings out there.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm sure a couple of prisoner of wars probably died out there, too. Mm-hmm. What about the Red Cloud Agency?
Yeah.
What about the whole of the Red Cloud Agency? Where's those ghosts?
Yeah.
You're very selective, what you end up being when you start to look for the hauntings versus the sense of hauntings. Because if it was a thing, why does it cut off all the time when we lose our history?
Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with, you had all these miracles, and then you look at when cameras came around, and now all of a sudden they're not documented.
They're not so many miracles anymore. Yeah. And the same thing happened between cameras and then videotape.
Yeah.
Even less miracles happen. So yeah.
Yep. Just be skeptical. I mean, if you want to believe in ghosts, great, but
I only ask for good stories, guys. That's all.
Yeah.
I ask for good stories.
Yeah.
Give me something good. Even my story, I'll admit, guys, wasn't that good. I mean, I was just a scared little 12-year-old whose bath water got a little too cold. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. So when Renee was relaying this story to me, Lee was teasing another female coworker who was there, saying, because this female coworker said that she hadn't seen or heard anything, and she'd been working there for several years. And Lee just looked at her and goes, "The spirits don't like you." So
good explanation.
Yeah, that's why you don't see them, he said. It's because you make fun of them, and she did.
So again, doesn't that mean you as a human are better off? Like spiritually protected. Yeah. All I have to do is make fun of it. They'll leave me alone.
And they'll
leave
me alone.
That seems like a logical thing to do.
Yeah.
So I'm protected.
There we go. Renee also said that in all the time she worked in the museum, she could never hang any pictures or paintings on the west wall because they would get knocked down. She tried 4x6 pictures, giant posters, large pictures, and she said it didn't matter, it would get knocked down. And to me, I'm just like, maybe the wall sucks.
Well, that would be a fascinating thing to document.
Yeah.
If that statement is true, that is easy to scientifically document.
Yeah.
Put the pictures up.
Put a camera
up. See what happens.
Yep. She's tried to relocate old photos from when the building was in use by the military to see what was on that wall, in the hopes of learning why the ghosts don't want anything hanging there, but she wasn't able to find any pictures, because that was her thought. She's assuming it's the ghost knocking the pictures down, so she's like, well, what was there? And she wasn't able to find any pictures to try and complete her story, I guess.
Maybe nothing.
Yeah,
it was a military barracks after all.
Yeah, there might not have been anything on the wall.
Swords on the wall, an American flag.
Yeah, I
doubt a whole lot of pictures or portraits might have, maybe some, but of the officers, but not a whole lot.
Yeah. So one morning just before she opened the museum, a stall in the women's bathroom was locked from the inside. She thought maybe a child had done it, and I know I've done
lock and crawl at the bottom. I would have done that.
Yes, yeah. I'm like, I have done that. But she went back and looked at the surveillance video from the day before, and no one had been in the stall. She says the stall. What she means is you go in that room and there's 3 stalls in there, but the video does not go into the bathroom. It's just
no,
down
of
the
course
hallway.
not.
So
Although
no
it's
one.
interesting, all the lack of cameras in Fort Robinson, we got to make sure our bathrooms are well monitored. But whatever.
Yeah, the camera does go down the hallway to the bathroom, and so no one had been in the bathroom all day, yet alone any children. So she did what you and I would do: climb under, unlock the damn thing. Who knows? I wrote way too much, dude. We're at an hour and a half,
we might only get to this.
and I'm like,
today.
we might have to do the other one next time. Yeah. So after doing a sweep of the building another night to make sure it was empty, she locked up and left. And before she got in her car, she noticed the light was on in the basement bathroom. And the only way for that light to go on is for someone to be in there. She said it's motion activated. She was the only one in the building the entire day.
Okay, folks.
And
Again,
only full body movement when walking through the door turns the lights on.
That's not true. We have motion sensor lights in our entire WNCC. You blink the wrong way and those things will turn on. That's not true.
But she was already in her car and she thought, nope, I'm not checking it out.
No, I don't care.
I don't care. So she went home.
Yeah, we have one in our dry storage that bugs the crap out of me because every time you come near that door, it'll flick on, even though the motion camera is on the other side. So it shouldn't do that. But a reflection, anything that disturbs the movement,
we'll do it.
Turn it on.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's like whatever.
And then there's Lizzie, who seems content with staying in the Adobe building, which is managed by the Nebraska State Historical Society. There have been a lot of reports in this building. If you visit the fort, you can see the building, which is sectioned off today with plexiglass, but in the past it was completely open to the public.
Yes, it was.
I've only ever experienced it closed off.
Me too, but I was told. This Adobe house, for our listeners, and we'll get back into this, but the history is one of the older buildings that was made because they started with Adobe houses, found out very quickly that didn't work very well out here because of our wind, rain, and weather. So they moved to other building material, but these Adobe ones were the first officer ones built, and there are still a few, like this one, that has been preserved.
Yep. So if you are at the fort, go visit it because it's a neat little piece of history there. So reports of an organ playing for no reason are one of the most common things heard. I've never heard an organ play. I don't want to keep injecting myself, but I'm going looking for these things.
Is there an organ there? Mm-hmm. Oh, so there's an organ there.
Yeah.
Oh.
But
organs are strange machines. How they work, because they're not necessarily a string instrument, they're a wind instrument. So if the wind, something happens, goes through the pipes or the tubes.
No, Connor, it's ghosts.
Well, I actually, and again, was this an organ or was this a harmonica, an electric organ?
No, because it was an old
with a big old pipes.
Oh, I don't know if it had
organ.
Pipes. I don't know. See, now I got to go back up there and see what it looked like again.
Even then, there was two types of organs. There was the big church organs, and then there was another smaller version, and I forgot for the life of me what it was called. But
I don't know which one it was. Yeah,
maybe Calliope. Maybe that's what it was called. I don't remember. Okay.
Renee's mother worked at the fort for about 45 years ago. And she worked there when it was open. Her mom would hear visitors saying they heard the organ playing and the kids' toys would move around. To me, uneven floor, your toys move around. Today, when the cat toys move around in my house and I don't see it happen, I just assume my cats played with the toys and that's where they left them. I have not been able to train them to put their toys away. But in the Adobe building, toys move around. And so one day, an employee asked Renee if she could close the Adobe building for him. He was, running behind. I forget what it was, but it was just like, hey, can you go lock that up for me? He had seen a little girl sitting on the couch and was creeped out. So not only was he running a little bit behind, he sees a girl that's not really there on the couch, and he just hightails it out of there. Good flight or fight instinct. Run. So she closed the building with no issues, and she purposely avoided looking at the children's room there because the area freaks her and other people out. I don't think I've ever seen the children's area, but again...
I've seen it. It's a very common children's area.
Room. Okay.
It's probably pretty amazing to see at the fort, if you think about it, because there wasn't a lot of families there.
Yeah. So
to be able to see a kid's room at the fort, I actually thought was pretty special.
Yeah.
Personally.
So the next morning, she goes back to open the building, and when she walked past the children's room, there was a little girl standing in the doorway between her room and the bathroom. So Renee looked at the girl and then just kept on going. I got to admit, I'd keep on going as fast as I could if I saw...
Well, I would try to etch a description. Description would be important. I want clothing styles. I want period styles. I want to know what her hair was cut like. I want to know what shoes she was wearing. I want to know what dress she was wearing.
And that's where Irene's
style of it.
And that's where Irene sucks as an investigative reporter, because I was sent to get a ghost story, not an investigative piece. Yeah. And I'm sure if the next time I talk to Renee, I can ask her, and she could probably tell you. Yeah. I just didn't ask her then because it didn't matter for my story. So
I don't know enough about period pieces as far as clothing goes.
No,
to
but
know whether that was proper or not.
There was a gal that used to work down at the Legacy of the Plains Museum. Her name was Olivia. I think she's working on her PhD now. She was the archivist. You could tell her, I saw this picture and this is how the man was dressed. And she'd be like, oh, that has to be like 1910s to 1920s. Well, how do you know that? Well, this, and this, that he was. Yeah. She knew dress inside and out for like 150 years. She was really, really good at it. I'm sure she still is good at it.
Yeah. Well, they have that fashion section in there.
Yeah. So Renee thought she was just seeing things, and she only saw a girl because her coworker had talked about it, the night before, and he put the idea in her head. So she wasn't convinced that she saw the little girl. And since that day, Renee has seen the little girl in other areas of the adobe building, including the living room. And I'm going to quote from something she told me again. Renee affectionately named the little girl Lizzie and says hello to Lizzie every time she is in the adobe building. So here's your description. She is described as standing about 3 feet tall with long dark hair. Lee said Lizzie is always wearing a white dress. She never waves. She just stands there looking at him. That's what would creep me out. I'd be okay with a ghost waving at me, smiling.
Well, okay, but now you just got a good description. Now, where was this child?
Yeah.
We have enough history of Fort Rob.
We should have records.
Know if a child died at Fort Rob.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, I don't think any except maybe the few younger men in the Cheyenne outbreak were killed.
There were people that died there. I don't know if any kids
There's plenty
did.
of people that died there.
But
if
then
you had a little girl like that, something tells me that she would have been remembered. She would have had a tombstone somewhere. She would have had a record at the fort somewhere that a tiny little child in the middle of a native-infested territory where we're all constantly at war just died. You think there would have been something.
Or even, during World War II when they were training all the stuff.
Yeah, it again goes back to the POW soldiers. Where's the record of the POW soldiers that didn't make it? Yeah. I doubt they all survived. Maybe they did. Maybe every single one that came out of Fort Robinson came out of Fort Robinson alive. Maybe. I doubt the dogs didn't. Let's face it, we don't care about the dogs. But
I do.
Well, I do too. But
nobody
they
probably
did training dogs there. That's where we trained our parachute dogs.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things.
Yeah.
It's like if I had that description, I would be looking for this girl. Like in your history archives, there has to be something about a little girl dying.
You would think. And Lee said he didn't look at her that long, but it still weirds him out a little bit.
I only say this just because of our last piece that you did with that boy who got buried with such affection, and we know so much about him. Where's this little girl's affection?
Yeah.
This guy was an 18-year-old, kid that got remembered fondly and had his own grave put out here and everything for other people to remember him fondly. You're not going to give this girl the time of day?
Yeah.
I don't know. Suspicious.
So Renee said she doesn't find anything scary about Lizzie, and she sees her regularly. Lee has encounters with her as well because he lives in the other half of the adobe building. So I knew this when I knew there had been sightings of the little girl on the other half of the building when I stayed up there. So the night of the Cheyenne breakout, when I went to do that story, I stayed in that side of the adobe building that is the maintenance people's, which is Lee's home. Mm-hmm. And I got put on the end of the house, the far end of the house. So I wasn't on the side that connects to the other side of the adobe building where she's at. My colleague got the bedroom. I got the spare bedroom on the far end of the other house, and it was not far from the boiler, and every time that boiler turned on, it woke me up. But that thought was in my head every time I woke up is, does that little girl come to this side of the building too? But yeah, never saw anything. And I didn't know who she was. I just knew there had been sightings in that building. I didn't get this story till 2 years after I did the Cheyenne story. So Lee said one night while he was laying in his bed, he felt something on his right arm. He thought it was his cat, Clyde. Clyde's brushing his tail up against me. Clyde was sleeping on Lee's left side, and then it happened again the next night, and Clyde wasn't even in the bed. So first night, he could explain it away. Oh, it's Clyde. Second night,
not so much.
Not so much. And then it happened again a month later, and Lee just said he doesn't let it freak him out. It's just something that happens. And before Clyde passed away, Lee would see Clyde playing with somebody in the adobe building, even though no one was there. And he described it to me as different than when you see your cat, playing with toys and throwing them around and stuff. He said that his cat was playing as if there was someone there playing with Clyde, but no one was there. Clyde always looked down the hallway like anyone would when they're looking at someone at the other end of the hallway as well. My cats do that all the time.
So mine. Cats are strange.
Yeah. He insists that Clyde's behavior was different than when Clyde played by himself.
Yeah. And they will, won't they? They will do those insistings.
Yeah. So the incidents with his cats convinced him that there is something there, especially since Clyde behaved the same way as he did when he played with Lee. He was playing with someone, Lee said. He's running from them down the hallway and then back again.
My cats do that all the time.
I'm like, then I must have like dozens of ghosts in this house.
It's kind of like what my mom always said. The house that I live in, which is my childhood home, it's always been haunted. We're the third owners of that house. Mm-hmm. The third. And we know the other two families. No one ever died in that house.
Yeah.
We personally knew the other two families that lived in that house before we moved in. No, nothing ever happened in there. It's like, Mom, come on. You have to at least know how ghosts work. Like, they have to die, at least in the near vicinity, to be haunting this place. And nobody's died here.
No. So while Lee thinks his cat and the situation are odd, he doesn't let it bother him anymore. He considers himself lucky that he can hear the ghosts once in a while. He said he's been weirded out, but doesn't think there's any harmful ghosts here. And on another night, Renee was closing up the adobe building later than usual, so about 9:30 at night. And she walked down the front porch and went around the building, walking down the hallway to shut the back door. Standing in front of the plexiglass, you can look down into the living room. And Renee saw the reflection of a person in the plexiglass, but thought the reflection was a little weird. So she turned around and there was no one there. She's still not sure if there was someone behind her or not. So Fort Robinson is also the home of the Post Playhouse, and a lot of people have reported the presence of an actor from Chadron State College who had been dead for many years. Comanche Hall is loaded with stories from over the years. In one story, an employee who was working at night received reports a light was on in the building and no one was staying there. So he and another employee go and turn out the light, locked up the building. Later on, he noticed the same light was back on. Each time he conducted checks of the building, more lights were turned on. And by 5 a.m., he said Comanche Hall was lit up like a Christmas tree and there was no way he was going anywhere near the building to turn the lights off. Again, faulty lighting is what I say.
Or someone got in there because this place is not Fort Knox.
Yeah.
It's easy to break into these places. Not saying that they have a problem with break-ins, because they probably would say they don't. But, you know.
In my opinion, it's more faulty lighting.
Faulty lighting.
Wiring. You know.
Raccoons, rats,
mice.
I have a mouse problem in my house now. I've never had a mouse in my house for the now 20 almost some years that I've lived in and out of it. My mom's never had mice. Never had cats either. I have 2 cats now, and now I have a mouse. So, I mean, there goes to show you what's going on.
Is your cat's name Tom?
No. No.
So others say they feel like someone is watching them in Comanche Hall. One employee said that they had a feeling that when they were mowing the lawn outside and no one was around, there was someone watching them. Another employee tells a tale of how someone sat down on the bed with her when she was in one of the apartments. And no one was there, but someone sat down next to her. I mean, if there was an indentation in the bed, I would probably get kind of creeped out. Otherwise, yeah, I don't know what to make of that. Renee said when a friend came to visit her in 2003, they stayed in one of the brick buildings at the fort, and her friend felt an overwhelming need to leave, like nobody wanted her there. So she took the hint and left. But this friend also held her birthday party at the fort, and her guests said that they weren't spiritual or religious in any way, but didn't feel comfortable there. And less than an hour after the party started, everybody left. So I'd be like, free cake. I'm a terrible person. On another visit to the fort, I was talking with Sandra Reddish, who has a really, really long title. She works for the Historical Society Foundation. I forget what her title is. But anyway, she has heard many, many stories as well, has not experienced anything. And she's the one that Lee was making fun of that day. And just basically said, because you make fun of the ghosts, they don't reveal themselves to you. One of the things that Renee and I do share is this great feeling of heaviness at the barracks where the Cheyenne breakout happened. It's just such a place of great sadness and pain. I think that you can feel its weight when you're there and you know the history of the place and what happened. If you're like Lee and Renee and embrace the strange occurrences, you'll probably enjoy everything about the fort and everything Fort Robinson has
Absolutely.
to offer.
You'll like it, even if you're not,
yeah.
Like Irene and I have said multiple times, we're not into supernatural. We do not believe in the supernatural or spirits or ghosts, and neither of us had had any real adventure, I should say, to confirm it one way or another.
Yeah.
But that being said, Fort Robinson is a creepy place, always has been. It has an eeriness to it. Again, I think a lot of that has to do with how quiet it is there. There's just, for some reason, not a lot of birds. Even though there's a bird sanctuary, a wetland sanctuary not too far from there, you don't hear a lot of birds.
No, you don't.
You don't hear a lot of crickets or chirps, or you don't hear a lot of stuff out there. So I think that makes it
that
eerie.
adds to it,
adds
yeah.
to the eeriness, and then you put the history of it. For what we do know of the history, again, I have problems and speculations with how much we don't know about the history, and then we claim it's like, oh yeah, there's ghosts here. It's like, okay,
yeah,
it's like if you say so,
whatever.
You know, I would really like going back to that little girl. I would love to know who that little girl was.
Yeah,
I'd just love to know, because I think it's more fascinating once you know what the ghosts are. Mm-hmm. You know, just saying, well, some dude was there walking around in a soldier's uniform. It's like, well, it's a military barracks. Which dude?
Yeah.
Was he an officer? Was he a soldier? Did he get killed there? Did he get caught there?
What did his uniform look like?
Yeah. Was it World War I? Was it World War II?
Yeah. Was it a Buffalo soldier?
Was it a Buffalo soldier? Yeah.
Lots of unanswered questions. And again, when I went, my focus was on getting the creepy, ghosty story.
Mm-hmm. Well, even this family. I mean, not to get too, picky or weird about it, but is this a regular old non-religious white family, or is it not a white family? Because I can see if you're not a white family not feeling comfortable at that fort.
Yeah.
For several reasons.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bad history there.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's some weird things to that. And those brick buildings also are creepy. They're really pretty, I think, but they're creepy.
They're are.
Old.
They're beautiful buildings, but I haven't been in any of them. Other than Comanche Hall has the dining area. Mm-hmm. I've been in there just on the first floor, and the floors creak. It's an old wooden building, and I feel a bit uncomfortable in there, but it's mainly because I don't feel like I belong when I go in there.
I should have asked my husband to come today and tell us the story, because he was a housekeeper there for several summers.
Really?
He did the housekeeping, and I actually, because I didn't know. I didn't even think to ask him this morning. It's like, oh yeah, you work there. Did you ever see any ghosts? I think we talked about it before, and I don't think he has.
Well, you know what?
I thought we brought it up.
He needs to come next week, because we're running at 2 hours just on Fort Robinson. So I think I'm going to split this into a 3-parter, and just tell Jason to come next time, and we'll talk a little bit more about Fort Robinson, and then we'll get into the Midwest and
drag him in.
Yeah. Tell him he doesn't even have to look pretty. He doesn't have to doll himself up, because nobody's going to see him but me. And I mean, come on, I got a T-shirt and shorts on and some headphones crushing my hair. So
I think we're going to end this at
we're
today.
We're just going to do Fort Rob today. Next week we'll do the Midwest. And then depending how long Midwest goes, the rest of the Panhandle can easily be a whole other episode. If we were just like, this is Fort Robinson, it is haunted, we could have easily done the Midwest and Fort Rob, but
we get chatting.
Yeah,
we're just too skeptical.
Yeah,
I personally think I am too skeptical to take this too seriously, but
and technically, so the Midwest is 2, 4, almost 6 full pages, and we just
another really creepy place here.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll probably ramble on a bit there. I have a feeling that the other ones that are not in the Scottsbluff area, or Fort Rob, we go there all the time, but some of the places around the Panhandle, like Alliance and Sydney and Kimball, we don't know those as much, so we probably won't have as much to talk about, just because we haven't really been to those places like we've been to these 2 places. So I think this will end up being a 3-parter, in which case you'll get a bonus scary story after Halloween, and it's my podcast. I don't care. Technically, it's Connor and I's podcast, but I don't think he cares either.
Oh, I don't care.
No one says we have to do all our ghost story episodes in October. I could do them in July if I wanted to.
Well, we got December. December's a good time for ghost stories. Charles Dickens did it. I don't know why we can't do it.
Well, there you go. Figure out some Christmas ghost stories.
Get some Dickens going on.
Yeah, we'll just sit down and start reading Dickens.
There you go.
So anyway, come back for at least part 2. We'll probably do part 3 as well.
Absolutely.
And we'll be back next time. I'm Irene.
I'm Connor.
And this is Storytelling on the Plains.